Good morning. Going to take a moment for the morning moment. So, shalom to you. It's still not quite as early as I planned on it being. To be honest, I did forget to start the live video. But, anyways, want to take a moment this morning to further comment on this recent Gallup poll that has been issued showing a rise of interest in and importance placed upon religion among young men ages 18 through 29. Now, there are definitely some good things that could come from this. If you have people that have a mindset that they want to get to truth and particularly get to the truth of God and following His Word, yes, most definitely, that would be a good thing. Of course, this poll, as far as at least what I've seen with the stats, doesn't address all those matters. If somebody's saying that religion is very important in their life, well, that's a very broad thing when you think about it. People that talk about that they are attending a religious assembly more. Okay, well, that's a very broad thing. When you think about it, it could be some, very left-leaning, woke, progressive group that claims to be Christian, yet holds to none of the basic foundational tenets of the faith and will be considered, heretical. I mean, so that there's a lot to consider there. That being said, yes, let's be positive. I do think always should strive to be positive and optimistic. This can be used to further the kingdom. This can be used to further carry out the mission of the Christ, to make disciples of all the nations. But I think this is key to remember. We're supposed to be making disciples, growing them in knowledge. Because there's some other things going on right now among young men that are alarming. One of the things I've noticed on X, now I've not done the scientific study on this, and I won't have time to, so maybe somebody else has. But I've noticed on X, oftentimes, if somebody has something like Christ is King in their profile, they're likely to be Jew haters. I don't like the term anti-Semite. I get why they use it. Yeah, they're anti-Semitic, but they hate people because they're Jewish. Like that's a very common thing, even though Jesus was Jewish. And these same guys will fight that idea, even though Jesus was of the tribe of Judah and of the house of David. But you see some things going with these people. Many of these people that are talking about how important religion is to them, and they're saying Christ is King, and then there's a bunch of vulgarities out of their mouth about how everybody's being paid $7,000 and all this stuff. There's a lot of things going on with this group right now. And I'm not saying they're all like that. I have heard some more positive stats about, mainstream conservatism as opposed to the more far right conservatives that do look actually like it's not maybe quite as bad as sometimes it looks on an app like X, which is a cesspool of white supremacy and anti-Semitism, or it is Jew hatred. Like, I'm not saying it's all like that, but there's definitely a lot of it on there. So what's my point? My point is, consider back in Acts 15, where we have this situation that arose about the place of Torah for the Gentile believers. And, in Acts 15, verse 5, it very specifically mentions that some of those pushing this idea that these Gentiles had to be circumcised and to be taught to keep the law of Moses, that they were Pharisees. And I'm not saying that in the modern day way we use it. I mean, in the original way. I mean, historical context here. These were people actually came out of Phariseeism. Not all, not at least not all by Acts 15, but most of your Christians by that point in your Christian history were of background in Judaism. And these particular men, at least some of them that were pushing this idea that you had to be circumcised and you had to keep the law of Moses to be saved, they were from the Pharisaical background. Now, how does that play into what's going on? Well, these men's background and ideology that they'd had, it affected how they viewed Christianity and what they were trying to do with it, things they were trying to add to it. we need to be aware of this when we reach out to this demographic. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying to paint them with a broad brush and to assume that somebody that is newly come to conservatism or has, more religious fervor than they did, that somehow this other garbage goes along with it. But be aware. We need to be aware that as we see young men that like, why I know I need to get back to church and this sort of thing, and you reach out to this individual, be aware that with at least some, yes, there is actually things that are very ungodly, very unchristlike, very opposed to his teachings. And you have among this group those that are, supporting things like Candace Owens' continued abuse and slander towards Erica Kirk. You have this, not just as saying, well, we don't follow the Old Testament anymore, or saying, well, now the church is God's chosen people, but people espousing like just straight up anti-Semitic things. People not only pointing out like stats among certain demographics, but actually pushing like actual white supremacist narratives and stuff. It is going on. And as much as terms like white supremacist and anti-Semite and racist have been abused by people, there are those now that are actually those things. And they are trying to claim the conservative title. And they're trying to worm their way in with a group. And so with this Gallup poll, be aware there are some other alarming things going on. We don't want to look and say, okay, well, wow, this group, they're more interested. So that's just wonderful. Yeah, but make sure you're discipling them. Make sure you're discipling them as you reach out to them. And don't overlook any of these tendencies towards a racist view, an anti-Semitic view, and this sort of thing, because you want to get your numbers up at your congregation. So we need to make sure that as we're discipling people, awareness of their background is a necessary and good thing, because we're supposed to be discipling them. We're supposed to be bringing them to the Christ and teaching them his truth. So just some considerations off the top of my head this morning. Lord willing, probably with you here in a little bit with the midday moment, and then Monday with the Messiah. Shalom.